Earlier this year, a janitor working alone found a leather-bound journal deep behind a fractured stone wall that was worn and almost falling apart. Its pages were replete with unsettling confessions and belonged to the church's first spiritual leader, Pastor Wilfred Hale. As stated in one post, "I have sealed the chamber. The floor moans at night, but the talking has ceased. Something is waiting, not sleeping." Even more disturbing was the 1901 entry, which stated, "This woman has not yet been born, but when she enters the sanctuary, the stone will stir." On the final page, the name Roach scrolled violently. It's obvious and unnerving how much it sounds like Chrisean Rock, whether it was a typo, a prophetic phonetic transcription, or just plain madness. Even more disturbing is the fact that over the course of the previous 3 decades, every woman who stood at that altar and reported feeling a spiritual power went on to experience repeated visions of an underground area, intense dreams of shadowy, faceless figures, and unexplained seizures. Does this prophecy have anything to do with Chrisean Rock? According to a strange theory that is currently trending on the internet, her ancestry may be traced back to a spiritualist from Haiti who was banished over a century ago for using prohibited magic. If that's the case, she might be more than simply a participant. She might be the secret that summoned something through the ritual to which she was bound. However, because something has reacted this time, the church has consistently suppressed the facts and written it off as coincidence or hysteria. The spark that opened a blood-sealed lock centuries ago was the belief that this exiled spiritualist, whose name is Rosanne Roach at Roach Rock, is older than any god humanity has ever named. Her presence was the spark and her name was the code. Then, last night, a concealed hatch that was precisely square, undisturbed, and never disturbed was revealed by blurry but authentic footage that emerged beneath the church's altar. The key and name Chrisean Rock were inscribed neatly and indisputably in flawless modern English at the exact center of the large, hefty, and old slab that was discovered after it was forced open. The symbols etched on the slab have since been lost to time. Although the inscriptions seem to be just a week old, scientists proved that the stone itself is more than 500 years old. While one expert fell, another whispered, "This stone breaks time," and departed the place completely. The most common topic on the internet right now is whether Chrisean was called to this particular time or if her collapse, controversies, and public fall were all a part of a bigger scheme that was completely beyond of her control. The twist, Pastor Elijah Brooks, occurred after one spiritual researcher came to the conclusion that it seemed to have been written just to bring her back to that altar. Just before the stream cut, the man who discovered the slab vanished and his final words were caught on camera. "She's not the first, but she will be the last because whatever her name is, it's no longer sleeping." After the discovery of the ancient slab, the church began to change. The sanctuary lights began to flicker and surge with violent bursts at night. The organ played a single melancholy note. The stone began to emit heat, yes, real warmth, and skeptical paranormal investigators showed up with infrared equipment and gloves, verified that the carved name was the only source of heat, not the stone as a whole. Chrisean Rock's public disintegration began that same week when she shared and later deleted an enigmatic Instagram story with a dark screen and her hushed words, "I see him in mirrors. It's calling me back." Insiders knew she hadn't slept for days, but fans weren't sure if it was a teaser. "There's a humming in my bones like the earth's trying to talk," a devout Christian murmured to a makeup artist during a podcast recording. Not long after, then the shocking news broke. A voicemail that was allegedly delivered from one church employee to another was posted online and quickly went viral. The voice on the recording says that they were prepared with that stone and obviously knew she was coming. It wasn't discovered by chance. It was waiting. All of this suggested one horrifying reality. Chrisean Rock wasn't merely the victim of a paranormal incident involving mumbling, sleepwalking, hall roaming, and strange, unknown languages. On surveillance film, she was seen standing still and facing a blank wall for 47 minutes one night. Her voice could hardly be heard as she repeatedly said, "Bind it, break me, bury it." It was permitted by the preacher. The events that followed weren't coincidental. The live stream, the breakdown, and even the possession were all part of a bigger scheme to deliberately attract Christians. This was an inside betrayal, and from internal documents that were stolen, a new name surfaced: Reverend Marlowe Kane. a retired elder who secretly provided funding for the church's most recent upgrades. The ship must be called the Roach and the Risen Stone. She will be the bell Cain supposedly heard about. He had a number of unpublished sermons with unsettling titles. The stone may have been purposely revealed by a Reddit thread that connected the dots, pushed for Christian's visit, and demanded the live feed. Was this a ritual masquerading as a haunting rather than a true haunting? By interpreting the marks around the stone, Christian was able to match the prophesied too closely. One section was loosely interpreted as born of flame and chaos. The seal will emerge when she speaks the name, compare it to her birth date, birthplace, and family tree, and realize frightfully that all the marks match. Then, fresh video from a concealed camera in the choir loft revealed something that the live broadcast inside the sanctuary had missed. 3 members of the church walked up to the stone, stood in prayer. One of them dropped to his knees, and then the unthinkable occurred. TikTok flooded the timeline with the hashtag she's the deal breaker, claiming that she was born to reveal whatever lay beneath the internet. As soon as her name rang out on the stone, others demanded. Happened when the stone moved 2 inches on its own to show something throbbing underneath. Since then, the silence has become a clamor, and the church is now totally closed to the public, media, and live feeds. The video finishes without sound or explanation. Insiders murmur that it is being confined, but officials claim it is for spiritual purification. In recent nights, a Christian's child, has drawn flawless circles on the motel floor, attracting everyone's attention. The child has been seen sketching circles on the ground that precisely match the inscriptions etched on this old stone. The babysitter immediately quits because she is so scared. Blueface, the child's father, petitioned for immediate legal protection after the youngster said, "We're going back under," and made eye contact with her. He claimed to be experiencing spiritual instability. But what if there is no threat to the boy? What if the church, the prophecies, and everything Christian are falling apart? According to a statement at the top of the stone that scholars recently decrypted, she will rise and the seal will break with her bones chilling. Is she meant to be the sacrifice, or does this imply that Christian lives? The stone's movement should have put an end to everything, but instead it sparked a worse situation. The seal split, bringing with it the sound that maintenance workers described as being weak. Every visitor recounted the same thing: a bloody stairway and anonymous woman waiting below, and a voice whispering, "You let her in. Now she lets me out." After investigating the issue and drilling into the earth, geologists discovered nothing but a big hollow void. This wasn't made by human hands. The ritual was never meant to contain it, muttered one expert. In a live feed that has been seen more than 13 million times since the tragedy, prophecy analyst Leona Baines revealed the information. She deciphered other markings from the stone and discovered a startling turn of events. The initial founders of the church only postponed the entity rather than sealing it. Instead of binding, the symbols were instructions for a slow release mechanism and the key to activating it: Chrisean Rock's lineage. The most horrifying aspect is that the seal fractures in phases rather than all at once, with the next phase beginning as the vessel bursts. Christian has vanished in the interim, and her team has canceled all public events in total silence. She repeated blankly, "I see below, I see before, I see beneath the veil." But there was more. Kazari, a second name next to hers. "It's what her son told me his name was, but it's not his legal name." Christian responded to a nurse's question by saying, "That's not what I named him. It's what he told me his name was." Next followed the 22-second shaky video leak from the dark web and Telegram. As she lays her hand against the stone while encircled by robed beings, Christian murmurs, "Take from me, leave the boy." The stream does not provide a timestamp, but the background stone is the same as St. Elijah's. Following a brief reopening for prayer, the chapel descended into turmoil, with 40 people experiencing excruciating migraines, 9 fainting, and 1 yelling in a language they had forgotten. Just as her name was being pronounced, one priest said, "This isn't a sanctuary anymore. It's a doorway, and it's opening." The footage featured a horned figure behind the stained glass. The entertainment industry is collapsing. PR staff won't speak, and Christian sponsors are pulling away. However, behind them came the last revelation. An unbelievable image was seen by a drone scan beneath the church. an old door that had been sealed in an incredibly strange way. But the stone in front of it had suddenly fractured, expanding, and scrolling above it in vivid scarlet. They were all aware in private that this was a controlled detonation industry rather than merely a collapse of celebrities. According to insiders, Christian's rise to prominence was not a coincidence, but rather the result of a well-planned plan carried out by the Circle of Attackle, a covert organization whose oldest base may have been St. Elijah's Church alone. It has been attached to her since birth and is crossing across. What was formerly referred to as a possession, a breakdown, or a stunt has evolved into something far more dreadful. The unimaginable is confirmed by every fresh leak, odd broadcast, and sound coming from beneath the altar. The online warning isn't her narrative. Millions of people believe that the world has shattered and are pleading for healing, exorcism, or any other solution to halt the current situation. There's darkness on the other side. On the one hand, millions are urging exorcism to halt the situation, while on the other, she is the gate. Kazera is on her way. There are growing cult-like movements that worship the stone and honor her as the mother of rebirth. According to one widely shared post, this is not evil. It's the next step in her evolution, TikTokers chant. Celebrities are frantically imitating her name's YouTube looping symbols. In addition to unfollowing Christian, Nicki Minaj tweeted, "Y'all better stop playing with spirits." Kanye, Batgirl is no longer walking alone. In response, he tweeted that she was always being carried rather than walking. On social media, a fresh image of Christians with blank hands and eyes stood outside the church's wreckage. As stated in the caption, "They did it to Jesus too." The words "return streaming platforms are pulling her content," and "record labels are freezing deals" took the place of Beyoncé's official fan site shortly after it went down. After a 12-year-old girl was admitted to the hospital for writing stone symbols on her desk and speaking in tongues, public health officials and religious leaders in Baltimore met in an emergency session today. Her parents claimed that the girl had spent hours watching video of the altar. Videos of Christian's appearance have been marked as emotionally dangerous by the Cybercrime Division. They are unconfirmed but are circulating. Pastors all around the United States are also cautioning congregations against using her name. Seismic monitoring at St. Elijah's have picked up repetitive, rhythmic pulses from underground that are growing louder and closer to the dot, according to reports that a Department of Defense psychological threat unit has been briefed on the subject. Witnesses saw the church catch fire late last night. However, St. Elijah's had fallen by morning, but in the midst of the ashes, the stone was still warm, undamaged, and only one phrase was written in impossible handwriting. A videotape from a Romanian priest has gone viral, supporting his terrifying assertion that the name on the stone is an invocation rather than merely a name. The most disturbing thing to yet is that the seal diminishes each time it is spoken. A leaked hospital document disputes Christian's team's claim that the missing child is safe and concealed for protection. Now, the question haunts every headline in the world. Mass faintings, abrupt anxiety surges, people unraveling shared dreams. And youth news anchors frozen in mid-broadcast are all happening. After that, the teams of St. Elijah dug beneath the ashes and discovered a second chamber that had never been identified in any blueprint. It was a hewn made of bedrock with walls that were 12 cooler than the surface, and the air itself was pulsing. Spiritual historians and seismic analysts were called in, and instead of discovering a tomb, they discovered a throne room with blackened walls, warm candles, a blood-stained mural depicting a woman giving birth in a fire, a horned figure observing a child reach up his non-human hands, and a stone chair covered in ancient cloth in the middle. Not the final twist, a circle with 7 pieces etched into the wall behind the throne, 6 of which are now faintly glowing, and one that is still black and pulsing beneath it, which symbolizes that the world will be revealed when the 7th seal breaks and the gate will collapse rather than open.